Once again, welcome to today's broadcast. This is September 12th, monthly coaching call. Today's call, we have three individuals have emailed questions in. Mark, who is I can always count on Mark for sending in some good questions. He's sent in quite a few. I've got Craig and I've got Barry. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to send your questions in via email. I've got my email open here on my phone beside me. As well, if you want to use the Facebook, write a comment at all, go ahead and do that. And sorry, I just got one coming in here. There we go. Yeah, so we're live now. Okay, so let's get going here with the first question. This is from Mark, who is an investor in Calgary, and Mark has a child who's now going or attending university in St. John, New Brunswick, and I guess he's been out there visiting St. John's, and it's been a long time since I've been out there. I was out there mentoring students years ago. This would probably be 2007, 2008 was the last time I was out there, actually, and I was impressed by the city. It is a little bit depressed, very flat with respect to appreciation, but a lot of people, I think a lot of people consider the East Coast sort of the forgotten market, and there's a lot of great opportunities out there. But if you're looking for an investment for appreciation, then this is not the market to be investing in. However, if you're looking for good, affordable properties to invest in and still get decent rents, then definitely markets in St. John's, New Brunswick. I can't speak for all of the East Coast, but Halifax is also another good area to be investing in, primarily because of the schools. In St. John's, they've got the oil industry as well. Irving Oil is out there. And when I was there back in the mid-late 2000s, at that point in time, Irving was talking about a huge expansion, and everybody was quite excited. There was some speculation going on in the real estate market. That all fell through for whatever reason, and has since the market has since gone back to being its regular flat numbers. So Mark sent me 4 different properties. They all looked very nice, actually. They were not necessarily purpose-built. One might have been purpose-built. The rest were non-purpose-built, meaning, again, that these are properties that have been converted from usually a single-family house, large single-family house, into multi-units. And if they're done properly, that's okay, but they do tend to have a few more challenges than most, than a purpose-built does. So he had an example of a 5-unit building for $224,000, a duplex for $179,500, another duplex for $149,500. One of those duplexes could have been converted into a triplex, and then there was another duplex which was 2 3-bedroom units, which looked like it might have been purpose-built, for $169,900. And the rents were still very good. They were over one of the duplexes, they were getting like $900 and $1,300, I believe. So still extremely good rents for that market, and definitely good bang for your buck. It doesn't really matter where and this is what I talk about all the time, it doesn't matter where you're investing, whether it be in your backyard or not. If you don't plan on managing the property yourself, there's nothing more important than having good, strong property management in place. Otherwise, you're going to become a motivated seller, and you're going to have other investors lowballing you because your properties are being mismanaged and being run down. So you want to make sure that, for example, we'll use St. John's, New Brunswick as an example here. Looks like a great market, lots of good rental properties, but is there good management? Is there good handyman services that you can rely on and trust? If you don't have these, then the challenges can be excruciating, because you're going to have to be flying out there multiple times, taking care of things, lots of headaches. So you want to make sure that you've got your team in place before you make any full-time commitment to investing in a place like this or any other place long distance wise. The same goes, I've got a student that invests down in the US market, and in Texas, and they have a very strong team down there. Their realtor is extremely good, and their realtor has a team that supports their out-of-town buyers. So you want to make sure you've got that strong team. The other thing that I brought to Mark's attention, which he had totally forgotten about, because obviously the 5-unit at $224,000 looks to be the best deal, especially from a cash flow perspective. The challenge here is going to be the financing, because when you go to a conventional lender to finance this, it's going to be deemed a 5-unit building. Therefore, they're not going to finance it because they're going to call it a commercial building. And they'll only finance up to 4 units. So then you have to go to the commercial lenders. The commercial lenders will look at it and say, yes, it falls into the category of a commercial product. However, the size of the mortgage that we're going to place on this is so small that it's not worth our time. We're not interested in doing it. So there's this gray area in between the 4 units and say 8 units, plus the price point of about $400,000 up to $800,000, where the commercial lenders are just not interested in and placing mortgages on something that small, because the cost of placing the mortgage, doing all the paperwork, is they don't deem that to be of value for them. So this could be a potential challenge, which means the financing will be harder to get, plus it'll probably be more expensive, unless you take that 5-unit and reduce it down to 4 units. Then you can get your regular residential financing in place. All right, so then Craig had a question. He was looking at a property, and his question was, well, he was in the midst of, he hadn't made an offer yet, but he was in the process of determining whether he was going to make an offer. And this particular property, the listing agent was saying that there's going to be HST on the property because the seller is an HST registrant. Well, that doesn't make any difference at all whether the seller's HST registered or not, because the seller could also have a store and or another business and have an HST registration. That doesn't mean anything when it comes to residential properties, whether it be residential, non-commercial, or residential commercial. So, for example, when I buy an apartment building, there is 0 HST on that because there's no HST on residential properties. However, where it does get to be a little bit tricky is that when you buy a property and it includes the appliances, those appliances are considered to be chattels. They're not part of the property, therefore, but they're included in part of the purchase price. Therefore, technically, they should have HST included in you have to put a value on them and then include HST on that. I have yet to see a transaction in all of my time where this has taken place. I know that Robert Kiyosaki and his team, I can't think of the accountant's name, Tom Wheelwright. He talks about doing this, and they do it on a much larger scale, though. So they actually factor everything out. When they buy a 200 or 300 unit apartment building, there's 200 or 300 appliances. They will actually break all of that out, put a value on it, and they will pay taxes if taxes are applicable in their markets, which I doubt that they are. And then they would depreciate those at a higher and faster rate than they would the building itself. So they would get bigger tax advantages. But here in Canada, I have yet to see that take place at this point in time. So I think where some of the confusion may have come into play is that the property he's looking at was a converted building. So I can't recall what the use of the building was before, but it was not for residential purposes, and it was completely retrofitted. And therefore, the owner who was doing the retrofit would have to be paying HST on all the building services, all of the products and everything they were buying. And if he became a registrant, he would be able to reclaim that. However, when he resells that, there's no HST applicable at that point in time. Now, for the flippers out there, this is something to be aware of. When you are flipping a property, I don't mean buying it, holding it, and flipping it. I mean buying it and doing renovations. If you do significant renovations to a property, it depends on the province you're located in, you could be subject to HST or GST. So you want to make sure that you understand this before you get involved, because if you go through a major renovation where you strip the house right down to the studs, new insulation, new wiring, new plumbing, in the eyes of the government, that's deemed to be virtually a new house. Therefore, HST is going to be applicable when you sell that house. So that can become very complicated and very frustrating and confusing. So sit down with your accountant and talk about that before you ever get involved in that. All right. Oh, the other thing that Craig mentioned also, and Craig's on the line here now, is that he was concerned a little bit about the ethics, the values, the professionalism, I guess would be a better way of describing it, of the agent himself, because the agent wasn't prepared to release all of the information related to the property immediately, or was not, or what information he was releasing by text. I believe that is very unprofessional. It's not uncommon, but it's still unprofessional. If a person is selling a commercial property, well, any property, it doesn't matter whether it's commercial or a residential house, a good agent worth their salt should have everything prepared ahead of time. They should have the taxes already, people are going to ask for the taxes, they're going to ask for the utility bills, they're going to ask for all these things, so why not have it ready ahead of time? Why not have it included in the listing? That just shows signs of organization and professionalism, especially when you get into the commercial world. Now, in this particular case, my sense is that the agent is not very knowledgeable or experienced in commercial, because if he were, he would be explaining to the seller that HST is not part of the transaction, nor can it be, should it be. Doesn't mean he's not a good agent, he or she. It just means that they may not have experience with commercial real estate, and this is in a small market. Small market, like, I don't know what the size is, but any market that's under 5,000, for example, commercial properties that come up for sale there are typically handled by your regular residential agents, just doing the best they can with what they know and what they've been taught as a realtor. All right, so I'll get back to Mark. Then had sent in another email, and he's got some other questions. If you have any other questions with respect to that, Craig, please feel free to fire away. Mark has 4 questions here. The first one is about upgrades. So he's been living in his house for approximately 20 years, and they're looking forward into the future about getting in a position where they're going to be selling the house at some point in time. So the house is in excellent condition. They've done some upgrades to flooring and things of that nature. But his question was, what should he be doing from the perspective of a realtor? What should he be looking at doing in order to maximize the value of the house? Well, there's 2 ways of looking at it. There's maximizing the value, but there's also making your house more saleable than somebody else's, even if it's at the same price, but your house is going to sell first. That can have as much value to you as getting more money, for example. A few things I'm going to touch on here. For example, if you're going to be changing flooring right now, hardwood is the trend, and a lot of people are getting away from wall-to-wall carpeting because of the not the contaminants, but the pollution in the air and so forth. Just a good hardwood flooring is going to be much easier to clean. It's going to be much cleaner air for your furnace as well. So there's a lot of pros, and it just has a much richer look to it as well. I really get I'm really disappointed when I go into what looks like a high-end house from the outside. You walk in, and the moment you step on the floor, you hear that hollow clicking underneath, and that's an inexpensive laminate flooring. And it looks good, but as soon as you walk on it, it's laminate. And as soon as you feel that, the whole value just plummets. So if you're going to invest the time and energy, spend the extra few dollars to do good quality hardwood. You can do some really neat things now as well. Bamboo is a really neat hardwood flooring that's out there that will just differentiate your property from everybody else. What you want is that wow, that pop factor. As soon as people walk through the door, they go, wow, look at this place. They love it. They'll look past so many other things just simply because of that wow factor. So you really have to focus on that wow factor. You could have the identical house, the identical floor plan. It's as good functionally and has built the same year and structurally as sound as your place, and it could be jam-packed to the rafters, filled with junk, old carpet and whatnot, and you walk in and you get this smell, and it'll drop $40,000, $50,000 in value compared to yours simply because you've got that wow factor, that pop. So hardwood flooring over laminate is my choice. The two major areas that people look at are kitchens and bathrooms. Sorry, I just see the delivery truck pulling up in front of my house. I'm not sure if I'm going to have to go to the door here or not. So we'll see if he just leaves it. Kitchens and bathrooms. So again, it's that wow factor, the functionality, the just the sense of you just going, oh my goodness, what a beautiful kitchen, without spending a lot of money. Some people go overboard, so they'll put granite in when a really good, high quality, nice looking laminate would do just as nice. They would. Oh, sorry, there he is. Oh, he's just leaving it. We're good. Sorry for the distraction. That's the challenges of working from home. Anyways, the nice kitchen fixtures, a nice kitchen sink, modernize things, make it look new, shiny, clean, a nice backsplash. If you've got a conventional countertop with that rolled lip at the back, that's fine. Replace that with nice new stuff and then put some tile backsplash at the back of it just to brighten it up. Or you could put it the countertop without the rolled backsplash and put the tile. And you can even go to, I see at Home Depot now, they've got peel and stick backsplash. And it sounds tacky. Hopefully it is tacky. But it looks really good. And when you put it on there, you have to get right up close and feel it and touch it to really determine whether it is ceramic or a peel and stick. So especially for rental properties, or if you're just trying to fix things up to make things look really good for the sale of your house, that is something that you could pay attention to as well. And unless your cupboards are totally falling apart, I would leave the main cupboards there and I would resurface them. So take the doors off. Here in our local community, we have an auto body shop that has a little side business where they'll take people's kitchen cupboard doors, take all the hardware off, fill all the holes, and then they'll give them a quick sand and they'll paint them. And you could take that same paint and paint the face of the cabinets as well. You can then paint the interior of the cabinetry and put the new doors on with new hardware, and you wouldn't know that there was the original cupboards that was there. You would think they were brand new. So you can totally modernize it at a fraction of the price, yet get that same huge pop wow factor. The other thing, especially with properties 20, 25 years old, they had the islands that came out with cabinetry over top of the islands, separating the kitchen from a dining area. What I see a lot of people doing, and I recommend this as well, is taking those overhead cabinets out, opening it up, make it a wide open kitchen area, taking the countertop of that section and expanding it so that you have a breakfast bar, and just making it, again, more modernized. So those are a couple little things. With respect to the bathroom, again, with the shower itself, you don't want to have a small, dingy, soap-stained, scaly shower in place. You're better, if you can't expand the size of it, at least replace that with a brand new shower stall, brand new shower door, etc. If you can, tile it. Tiling might be a little bit more expensive for sure, but again, it's that wow factor. As soon as you walk in and you see the tile with different patterns in it, it just makes it look like a showroom. And change the hardware out so that you've got more modern taps as well. Update the vanities Again, it doesn't cost very much to update a vanity. I just I just suited our house here, and my in-laws are moving into the basement, and I put a double sink in. It's not a marble top, but it looks like a marble top with a big solid vanity underneath it with 2 sinks. That whole vanity of it, just on its own, without the taps, was $1,000. Well, that just looks like it's incredible. Home Depot is a great place to be buying things like that. Go in and get great ideas there. Home Depot, Lowe's, etc. If you have half bathrooms or any old appliances or toilets, sinks, etc., you go into a house and you got the pink or the rose-colored and the blue toilets, get them out of there. Replace them. Even if you've got some old white porcelain, get them out of there and replace them with newer, high-efficiency low water consumption toilets. Again, people are looking for those little things. And this next suggestion may sound small, but it has a major impact. Change out all of your light switches and your outlets, all the covers and the outlets, and change them to contemporary, which are the plug square switches. And again, it just modernizes everything. Change them out after you do a fresh paint job so you don't get paint on the light switches. There's nothing well, for myself, when I look at a paint job and I see that they got paint all over the light switches, I mean, just, oh man, it's messy. What else is messy then? So it makes you concerned. All right, second question is the best way for a representative for the buyer to represent you to get the best deals. That's a hard one. So your agent, when they're representing you as the buyer, their job is to represent you to the best of their ability. They've got fiduciary duties to everybody involved. They're not allowed to lie. They've got to disclose everything that they relative to the property that's not personal. So they can't hide any issues with the property, for example. But it depends on the market primarily. So, for example, if you're in a seller's market where you've got multiple buyers going after the same property, it's pretty hard to be negotiating really good deals. Where a buyer can represent you well is to make sure you get that deal. So how do they write the offer to make their offer look better than the other offer? It could be a substantial increase in deposit. It could be an increase in the purchase price. It could be reducing or eliminating some of the clauses in your offer, etc. It could be attaching a letter, personalizing the whole offer process. When it's a buyer's market, again, it's I don't like being a hard ass. I don't like going in and being a hard negotiator. I like being a smart negotiator. I like getting the best deal I can for my person. However, I don't ever like going in with the intent of getting every penny I can out of the other person, the seller. Now, that's me. I know not everybody's like that, and that's fine. But that's how I operate. That's how I like it. So I would never be the type of person, if you're looking to get the absolute best deal for you and you're not concerned about the seller or their position at all, then I'm not the agent for you. So having said that, I'm still going to go in, especially if it is a buyer's market and there's not a whole lot of competition out there. What I would suggest you do is have the agent create some comparables of other properties that have sold recently in the area for less than what they're asking for, closer to what you're willing to offer, and make that as part of your offer package. So you could identify these, you could attach a letter saying that property A, property B, C, D have all been listed and sold in your neighborhood in the past 60 days, and they've sold for this price or less. Therefore, I'm not offering any more than that. Take it or leave it. Knowing that whatever you offer, you have to be willing to walk away and go somewhere else. And if it is a buyer's market, then there's likely other deals to be had as well. Starter homes. So Mark's also, and this sort of goes back to the property in the East Coast. His son is going to university, so he's thinking that it would be smart of his son to buy a house, and obviously with the help of his dad, I'm assuming, and live in the house, rent out a room or two to some students, and pay for the house, fix it up, and enjoy the equity growth in that house and the principal pay down and the cash flow, and then sell the house in the future. So there's two parts to this question. So the first part is what type of house should he be looking at in order to get the biggest bang for his buck, the biggest return? So I would suggest that it depends on the neighborhood that you're looking to live in and invest in, and check out the demographics. If you are looking in an area that's predominantly seniors, and there's more and more seniors looking to move into this area, and there's a really good deal on this 2-story house, then that may not be the best property for you, because when it comes time to sell that property in the future, that neighborhood's going to be more appealing to seniors, and 2-story houses are not appealing to seniors. Bungalows are more appealing to seniors. In reverse, if you're looking in a market, a good rental market, a market that's close to schools, and you're looking for, or young families, and you're looking for lots of rooms, lots of space, then a 2-story house would be more appealing. So if you identify a small bungalow in that neighborhood and you think, well, this would be great for seniors, well, maybe the house would be good for seniors, but the neighborhood's not good for seniors. Therefore, you'll have a hard time selling that bungalow in the future. So then you want to focus on a duplex, or not a duplex, a 2-story. Always make sure that you're buying something that's functional, and or that can be modified easily. You're looking for tired, dated, rundown properties that require some lipstick. Nothing major. You do not want to get into anything structural. So having the roof reshingled is easy. Having the carpets ripped up and discovering hardwood floors underneath and resurface and resanding the hardwood floors, easy. Going in and stripping wallpaper. Then these are all good things as well, because they're easy to do, just require a lot of manual labor with very little cost involved. Functionality and layout. So if it's a 2-bedroom bungalow, even if it's in a seniors market, a 3-bedroom is certainly better. If you have separate entrance into the basement, ideal. These things that would be appealing or attractive. Think of who your future market is going to be interested in this property, and try and keep that in mind. Always make things neutral. So whether you're preparing your house for sale or whether you are renovating a house, keep your house neutral. So if you're getting your house ready for sale, you've been there for 20 years, your kids have grown up and they've moved out, they may have gone through a phase where they wanted their bedrooms painted black. Well, that's great that you allowed your kids to have their own space and take advantage of that. Do not leave that room black or bright red or any other extreme color like that. Have it repainted, bring it back to neutral. The last thing you want to do is create shock. You want the awe, you don't want the shock when people walk in. You don't want them saying, "Oh, what a color," because now their attention is being taken away from all of the features of the house, and all they're focusing on is the color. And it sounds like a very minor thing, yet it has a major impact on people's perception of the property. So the second part to that question is about capital gains. A lot of people have this misunderstanding that you can buy a house, move into it, fix it up, and then sell it and not have to pay tax on it. That is true if it's your own personal residence. There is no timeline. So you could do that in the course of 6 months and sell the house and then move and buy another house. But if you did that every 6 months or you did it every year, now it's not, this tax savings, this tax loophole is meant for homeowners. It's not meant for business owners. And the fact that you're doing this on a regular basis, it is now becoming a business. And CRA will come down hard on you. I do know of somebody that this happened to, and I don't know the end result, but this individual was doing 2 and 3 homes every 2 years, and CRA eventually caught them and charged them for all the back taxes. Now, in this particular case, if you buy the house, this is sort of a gray area. So if you look it up in CRA, there's no clear defined definition of when or when the capital gains is exempt or not. What they do use is the word intention. So if your intention is to sell the property within a short period of time and realize this free tax, have this tax savings, then the government's going to say, no, that's taxable income. And this is part of the reason why CRA is now demanding that every sale, whether it be your house sale or an investment sale, is now reported on your income tax, because they're now starting to track these sales more closely. So for Mark's case, where his son goes out, spends 3 or 4 years at university, lives in the house and renovates it and then sells it in 4 years and moves on, I wouldn't be too concerned. However, there is an argument from CRA's perspective that, hey, it was your intent to buy it, fix it up, sell it for a profit. Therefore, it's taxable income. Now, it's only going to be 50% taxable income, but still, it's taxable income. Would they do it? I doubt it. That's up to you, but CRA has that opportunity or that privilege to do that should they choose so. All right, so we've got a couple questions here. So Bruce is saying, is there a best time to use the depreciation factor in a rental property? So the depreciation, when you use depreciation for tax benefits, you have to realize that you're going to have to repay that benefit back when you sell that property in the future. So the question is, when are you selling that property in the future? For example, rent-to-owns are investment properties, but you obviously have a very clear plan of selling that property in 2 to 3, maybe 4 years' time. Therefore, it's likely not in your best interest to depreciate that property, only to have to recapture it in 2 years. Yeah, whereas if you buy a property, for example, I've got one property that I know for a fact that we're going to be holding forever. Therefore, I have no concern about depreciating that property, because when we sell that property, it'll probably most likely be in my estate, or and it'll be it'll be part of the inheritance of my kids. It'll be their problem, but it's not a bad problem to have, because the value of that property will be so much higher, they'll be able to afford that tax hit at that time. So it really depends on your time frame and your plan. And also just ask yourself this question: is the dollar today worth more than it was 10 years ago? And is it going to be worth more or less 10 years in the future? So if you can take that money today and reinvest it in something else that's going to generate more income today, and you're not going to have to pay the tax man back anytime soon, then I would say yes, it makes sense to use the depreciation. So it's always a question to discuss with your accountant. Be prepared for negative and positive from your accountant, but don't just go and ask the question blindly. You'll want to, because the accountant's going to say, well, it depends on your plan. What's your plan for this particular property? Another question that's been forwarded to us here by Jen. I'm wondering if you've ever considered a new build for multifamily. Absolutely. It's on my goal board. It's what I want to do. It's actually, I can see a picture of it here right to the side of me. I've got a 48-unit building. I've got the plans for it. I'm going to build it as soon as I can figure out how I can afford to build it. Because the challenge is, if I have to finance it conventionally, then I can't afford to build it because it won't cash flow based upon the cost of building and the financing. So my personal goal is to build my portfolio to the point that I can afford to sell all my my old properties and build one brand new property with no debt on it, and then that one brand new property is going to be my my retirement for a long time, because once I build that new property, I've got a 10 to 15 year honeymoon period where things should be relatively low cost as far as maintenance, and with no debt service, my profitability should be approximately 50% of my revenues. So a 48 unit building at $1,000 a month, you know, $48,000 a month coming in revenue. So I'd have a $24,000 a month retirement package. I'd be happy with that. All right. Now, there are people who are building some multifamilies, especially in Vancouver. And the cost of building in Vancouver versus my hometown of Almonte isn't a whole lot different from the cost of materials and the cost of plans. The cost of land is going to be significantly different for sure. But the big difference is going to be the rental income. I would guess that they would be able to charge twice what I could charge for rent in my market. Therefore, it makes sense in their market. The thing that worries me, though, is Vancouver an overinflated investment market right now? In other words, if the market adjusts and rents come down, are you going to be able to support that property? Don't know. All right, so Jen was saying I've got a question here in my email, so I'm just going to check my email. No, Jen, I don't have one here. Let me just... So while I'm checking on that, if there's any other questions, please feel free to fire away. I'm just going to open up my email. Well, all right, I'm back. So, no, okay. All right, so the last question I have here is actually from a lawyer. This lawyer is representing a couple investors who are attracting joint venture partners to help them qualify for mortgages. And I found it interesting that this lawyer was asking this question because using other people to help qualify for mortgages can be a bit of a gray area. You need to be careful here with respect to mortgage fraud. What they are proposing to do is legal, and there's no problem with it. So what they are proposing to do is, so Bruce is on the line here tonight. So let's say Bruce is a very successful business person, and he has no time to invest. He understands the value of investing. I'm a very active investor, but for whatever reason, I've run out of credit or cash in order to qualify for mortgages. Just credit even. Credit is probably the bigger challenge, so I can come up with the money. So I say, Bruce, how about you qualify for the mortgage, which means you have to go on title for that mortgage. I'll give you a chunk of cash up front to compensate you for the fact that you are going through this. There'll be no cost to you. So I'll also pay you a chunk of cash to compensate you financially. And then when we sell the deal in 2 or 3 years' time, or if we're flipping it, then I'll also pay you another chunk of cash at the end. That is legal because Bruce is on title for that property. Where it becomes mortgage fraud is if I ask Bruce to qualify for the mortgage and then I either don't put him on the mortgage, which the lenders won't allow, or I try and take him off the mortgage after the fact and leave the mortgage in place. That would be deemed to be mortgage fraud in that case. So you have to be careful how you handle that. make sure you talk with your lawyer before you do such a thing, and make sure you can structure it properly. All right, so that's it for all the questions I have sent in to me today. If there's any other questions, please fire off right away. Otherwise, we are at 42 minutes, which is pretty good. Now, one thing, I do have a couple things that we have our upcoming boot camp coming up here on the 22nd, 23rd, and 24th. That's the Apartment Building Wealth Generation Program. That's the live boot camp in Ottawa that I do on an annual basis. In the past, I've usually done it in October. I moved it up a little bit. We're doing it in September this year to make sure we have decent weather. And the cost for people who have attended this program in the past is $197. For those enrolled in the apartment building program who would like to attend, it's $497. And this includes a bus tour on Saturday where we go around and we look at some of our properties that we've purchased in the past. So you get the opportunity to see the properties through my eyes, what I look for, and so forth. And then also, you get to meet some members of my team. On Friday, Mark Frentz, my business partner, will be there to speak about mindset. I've got my my insurance agent, a new insurance agent coming in who is also an active investor. And he really enlightened me just recently about some of the things that I needed to be aware of that I wasn't aware of before. And help you understand how and what you should have insured in your properties. And then in the afternoon, I've got First National representative coming in, not Daryl. Daryl has been in the past, but he's sending somebody else this year. So we've got a new speaker from First National to come in and speak about the lending market. And then Saturday, we have the bus tour. Sunday, we've got my lawyers coming in Sunday morning to speak to the group about whether you should incorporate or not incorporate, and joint ventures and how to structure those properly as well. I also have one of my top students who's really on fire, doing extremely well, very, very successful gentleman. He's going to do two presentations actually, one about renovating properties, and the other one is about raising capital and how it's worked so well for him. So if you have any interest in attending that, please make sure you contact Jen or myself, and we'll send you the link for registration. That event is coming up very quickly, and I do need final numbers ASAP because I'll be booking the bus for our bus tour on the Saturday. And that's it for me. So, Bruce is asking if it was my birthday recently. Well, within the past year. No, my birthday was in June, Bruce, but I thank you anyhow. Anyhow, have yourself a great day, everyone, and look forward to speaking with you next month. Take care. Bye now.